Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette. And today is our final day of Inktober Tangles 2023 with patterns 29, 30, and 31. And they're tricky ones. I've been sitting here practicing this morning, and we're going to practice together. And not sure I'm going to practice yet in my book. That may come a little bit later because these patterns are giving me a little bit of grief. So I'm hoping we can do some practice together. But I wanted to take a minute to say hello, welcome if this is your first time checking out my channel, Painting in Your PJs Live with Minette. Grateful that you're here. Thank you for joining me, those of you that have been here in and out all month long for Poems and Patterns in Inktober Tangles 2023. I'm a certified Zentangle teacher from way back in 2014, been tangling forever, and it's one of the few creative practices, excuse me, that has really stuck with me over the years. And manages to kind of find its way into all of my artwork, into my large canvases, my small canvases, my poetry books. And what I love about it is that it's a mindfulness based approach to creativity. You can draw any of the patterns one stroke at a time. Zentangle reminds us to slow down, to enjoy the moment. And I love Zentangle and poetry together because they both have that soporific effect of just helping us to relax, to settle in. And I enjoy reading poetry, and I always want to do more of it. So when I tangle inside of a book like this, then I'm sitting with those patterns for a while. And today's pattern, Good Morning Mary, or today's poem is a beautiful poem called Evidence. And so I want to share today's patterns separately, and then I will probably go back another time and add them to the book because I want to be able to draw them larger and really focus on the step outs because we have a couple of tricky ones. I really appreciated some of the challenges of Inktober Tangles this month and some of the more complicated patterns that are beautiful when they're complete. And if you missed yesterday's patterns were among some of those more complicated ones that when you break them down stroke by stroke, they're quite lovely. We had a couple of simple ones and then a couple that were definitely a little more tricky along the path. And today I'm going to finish up this month with the poem Evidence by Mary Oliver and three really interesting patterns that I'm excited to share with you all. But first, a poem to get us started. This poem is called Evidence, and it's a long one, so I invite you to maybe just relax, take a sip of tea or coffee, and just listen for a moment. Evidence by Mary Oliver. Where do I live? If I had no address, as many people do not, I could nevertheless say that I lived in the same town as the lilies of the field and the still waters. Spring, and all through the neighborhood now there are strong men tending flowers. Beauty without purpose is beauty without virtue. But all beautiful things inherently have this function, to excite the viewers towards sublime thought. Glory to the world, that good teacher. Among the swans there is none called the least or the greatest. I believe in kindness, also in mischief, also in singing, especially when singing is not necessarily prescribed. As for the body, it is solid and strong and curious and full of detail. It wants to polish itself. It wants to love another body. It is the only vessel in the world that can hold in a mix of power and sweetness, words, song, gesture, passion, ideas, ingenuity, devotion, merriment, vanity, and virtue. Keep some room in your heart for the unimaginable. There are ways to perish or to flourish. How old pain, for example, can stall us at the threshold of function. Memory, a golden bowl, or a basement without light. For which reason the nightmare comes with its painful story and says, "You need to know this." Some memories I would give anything to forget. Others I would not give up upon the point of death. They are the bright hawks of my life. Still, friends, consider stone that is without the fret of gravity, and water that is without anxiety, and the pine trees that never forget their recipe for renewal, and the female wood duck who is looking this way and that for her children, and the snapping turtle who is also looking this way and that way also. This is the world. And consider always, every day, the determination of the grass to grow despite the unending obstacles. I ask you again, if you have not been enchanted by this adventure, your life, what would do for you? And where are you, with your ears bagged down as if with packets of sand? Listen. We all have much more listening to do. Tear the sand away and listen. The river is singing. What blackboard could ever be invented that could hold all the zeros of eternity? Let me put it this way. If you disdain the cobbler, may I assume you walk barefoot? Last week I met the so-called deranged man who lives in the woods. He was walking with great care so as not to step on any small living thing. For myself, I have walked in these woods for more than 40 years, and I am the only thing, it seems, that is about to be used up, or, to be less extravagant, will in the foreseeable future be used up. First, though, I want to step out into some fresh morning and look around and hear myself crying out, "The house of money is falling! The house of money is falling! The weeds are rising! The weeds are rising!" Evidence by Mary Oliver. All right, so I am looking for some scrap paper to do some practice on. Thank you for listening to that lovely, rich, deep poem by Mary Oliver from the anthology Devotions. And now on to our patterns for the day. Let me go check my names of my patterns so that we make sure that we get the names of all of them right. So the first one is called Oasis, and this is by a CZT, an amazing artist, Tomas Padros, whose work I love, and you can find him on Instagram. And so this is an interesting pattern, and the step outs are on Instagram, and I'm going to put the link to his step outs right into our comments today. Oh, thank you, Barbara. I love, love, love that poem. Glad you're here, my friend. Glad to have you back, and I so enjoyed watching your journey. And this pattern can be drawn either as a ribbon or in the round this way. And I was starting to practice the next pattern too, and you can see this one's a little tricky, but we'll get to that one in a few minutes. So Oasis is really beautiful, and I love it in a ribbon, but I especially love it in the round. So this is what I'm going to show you the step outs for today is Oasis in the beautiful botanical variation. And thank you for those that are here joining me live. Thanks for catching the replay. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button and the notification so you get notified when I go live. And if you like what I share, please do hit that like button to encourage other people to watch. So the way that this pattern starts when we draw it in the round. Oh, yay. Welcome back. Welcome back, Marion, from all of your travels. I'm also so ready to settle back in. Glad that you're here and look forward to chatting with you soon, my friend. All right, Diego needs to come say hello. So the way this one starts is we're going to draw a star shape. And our goal is going to be to have this sort of star shape be round. And I realized that it's the trickiest part of the pattern, and that it would help if we had more or less of a circle drawn to kind of guide us, and we could erase those guidelines later, because I want the arms of the star to be approximately the same. So I'm going to make a little dot right in the center, and we're going to draw almost as if we were drawing a starfish. So we're going to draw a line going that way. We're going to turn our page or our tile. We're going to do the same thing going out this way. So we have 6 arms here. I'm going to go look at the step outs and make sure I get all the pieces in the right order here. So then the next step is we're going to aura these lines, but it's different than a normal aura because we're actually going to create shapes around these lines. And we're going to start with a little orb right in the center of the shape. And then around each of these lines, I'm going to make a little teardrop shape that comes down to a point at the center. Get my coffee cup out of the way. Zoom back in here. There we go. So starting at the point, coming up and around, and just making kind of a long, and I can see that this one got a little bit long. So I'm going to avoid that end just for now, because remember, this is just practice. That poem Evidence by Mary Oliver is new to me. I have really enjoyed reading through this anthology of her work and discovering poems that I'm not familiar with. I had another shorter book of her work, but this one was new to me. And then I'm going to I've got a 10 here, but a 5 would probably be best. I'm just using what is at hand. And I'm going to go ahead and black this in so that we have almost the shape of a flower and a petal that looks like daisy or aster petals. Just taking my time to blacken those in. Rub on my kitty a little bit. And think about what Mary Oliver said about having bags of sand in our ears and needing to spend more time listening. And I think one of the things I love about poetry and Zentangle is they both quiet my mind and get me more into a state of listening. I'm going to make that orb in the center just a little bit bigger. And then coming back to my O1, I'm going to draw some straight lines in between each of these petals, about halfway up. So you can go around and kind of make a little dot so that I can kind of get them again that same length. And then we're just going to connect the dots, remembering to turn our page as needed. This is one of those patterns that looks really complicated, but when you do all the step outs, it gets a little bit easier. And then we're going to create an inner star shape using these lines as our guide. So I'm going to come down with some diagonal lines as if I'm drawing the points of a star. And by continuing to turn my tile, I can see where to take off and land. So those points of those stars are more or less even around the circle. Good morning, Blanca. And then I'm also going to blacken in with that thicker nib pen the points of the star. And I can't believe Happy Halloween for those who like Halloween. I can't believe it's Halloween. I can't believe tomorrow is November 1st. And in November, I am ready to get back to my art journaling practice. Super excited for that. And I have a new list of gratitude prompts for this year that my son has made a gorgeous handout. I'll be sharing those tomorrow morning here live on the show. And if you're on my email list, they will also get emailed out to everyone. And I'm going to be doing some gratitude art journaling throughout the month of November. And super excited to be journaling again. So now we're going to finish this pattern off by sort of connecting our dots here again. So I'm going to, in that sort of crescent moon C shape, I'm going to go from the top of the petal to the point of that star. And I'm going to turn my tile as I go. Maybe make that one a little bit longer. And it's not going to end up being perfectly round. If I wanted it perfectly round, I would use something actually round to draw that original circle, but it'll be close enough. So it's a really lovely flower shape. So this is the basic shape, and then there's a lot of variations. But I'm going to come in and just put a little bit of line weight, slightly curved inside each of the little petals of this oasis flower. To just give it a little extra dimension, and it helps to create some rounding on those petals. So those petals start to look a little like the edges are a little bit puffy and rounded. I can also see coming in on this pattern and having some fun with some white and maybe bringing back some of those original shapes. That black all sorts of sort of ends up just bleeding together. And I love patterns like this, that the insides of the patterns offer infinite variation or possibilities for variation. Maybe I'll bring that star shape back as well. And then I'm going to come in and just shade the edges of these and add even a little more of that rounding. And I'm also sitting with that line of the poem. It was such a rich poem. Like the words are going to stay with me today about, if life isn't enough of an adventure for you, what would be? What would be? And approaching our life with that sense of curiosity and awe that she did is the way that I strive to live. What I don't have, aha, I do have. There we go. So let's take that wonky circle off the outside there. And there we have our lovely oasis flower by Tomas Padros. So that's the way to do it in the round. I'm also going to show you the ribbon because it's super quick and it's fun to have the two variations. And this is the pattern for day 29 of Inktober Tangles. And I'm going to have a lot of fun adding these patterns to my book of poetry because they were tricky. I wanted to be able to draw them a little bigger and practice first. So when we do it in a ribbon shape, it ends up being a series of sort of right side up and upside down teardrops, I guess is one way to say it. So we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to make a teardrop up. We're going to go across about, I don't know, half an inch or so and make another teardrop up. And that ribbon can go on as long as you want it to. So that's step 1 of the pattern. Step 2 is we're going to do the reverse teardrops. So I'm going to turn my tile completely upside down. And I'm going to come here in the middle. And I'm going to draw one going the opposite direction. So it's basically the same thing we did on the first one, but we're putting that reverse teardrop shape, and it's fine if they all aren't even. So now we have this interesting ribbon of teardrop shapes. And then you're going to take your time and you're going to blacken in all of those teardrops. So this is where it's like those initial teardrop shapes we drew on the round version. And then we're going to aura around the teardrop shapes with some S curves in order to give this some visual interest. Just coming in with a little bit of interesting shapes here. Just kind of making them fit in there, hug those a little bit. Might even extend that one over there. And that is Oasis in a ribbon tangle. And it's a fun one to play with and practice. It can be drawn inside of a lot of strings and different shapes. And it is a fun one to shade in the spaces between. You don't need a lot of graphite. We just want that shading just a little bit in there. And by adding just a little graphite, we'll be able to pull that down the whole pattern, but we want to have some white space remaining. And I love shading because it's the thing that really gives that final touch of magic to a Zentangle pattern and really completes that process for me. I love that Zentangle invites me to just slow down, to remember to go step by step by step. Me too, Blanca. It's a super fun one. So that is Oasis in the Round and Oasis in a Ribbon by Tomas Padros. The next one, I haven't figured out how to draw yet, so maybe together we will be able to figure that out. So this is meant to end up looking a little bit like a Celtic knot, and this one is called Trixies by Tina Chen, who's a CZT from Taiwan. And we'll see if together we can figure this one out. So I think it was ahead, and I'm going to do this one in pencil to start. I can always ink it over later. And I think it has to do with making sure that we kind of get the edges of the triangle to be sort of more or less even. I think maybe that was where I was struggling before, was with the shape of the triangle itself. Math has never been my strong suit, or geometry. It does look like Christmas ribbon candy. I loved ribbon candy as a kid. Yep, it was definitely a favorite. And then here we have an X, a Y, and a Z axis. Get back to my step outs over here. Hi, Brandy. Nice. I love it. Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you're inspired to try Zentangle. It is super, super fun, and today's patterns are certainly not the simplest ones. There are definitely better patterns to begin with. And I'm going to try putting a dot right in the center, which she didn't do, but I'm wondering if it will help a little bit with the figuring out, where this axis should go. So what she's done is sort of imagine these parallel lines coming here. So we're extending these lines here and here. You can see now why I'm drawing it with pencil as well. And we're going to create a funny little shape right in the center of our triangle, and I'm drawing that extra black just so that we can all see it. And then I'm going to take this top line over here, and I'm going to go from the top here to the left, and I'm going to go from the bottom from left to right, slant that back. So it's almost like I've created another triangle here, and then clearly we're going to do that same thing and take this one all the way back up this way. So we had our funny little cross shape to start, and then we had right to left, left to right, and sort of bottom up. And then we're going to add more triangles to kind of finish this off, and this is where it's going to get the really cool sort of woven Celtic knot look. So I'm going to come back up here again, and I'm going to draw a triangle. And I'm starting at the corner here on each of these, and then I'm going to draw a triangle here. And then this one's going to go way over this way. I'm sort of looking at the pattern, and I more or less got that right. So I'm going to try again, and we're going to keep working on it. Good morning, Judy. Welcome, welcome. So it feels like we're almost there. So let's try this one again. And now I'm going to go straight to inking this one in. So again, I'm going to draw that triangle. And the goal is to more or less have equilateral sides of that triangle. So we have our 3 axes here. Is that the plural of axis? I don't know. So if we were to continue this line and this line, and we were to continue this line, and we're to continue this line, so that does not quite right. So this one, this is where the tricky part gets, because that one really needs to be like up there in the center. But then this one gets fat, right? So we're just gonna sort of do our best here to get these lines right in the center. If anyone has a secret for figuring out drawing triangles, I am all ears. But this is one of those patterns for me that's all about practice. Like I'm up for the practice. And I'm wondering if I just make these a little bit wider. So if I imagine here's my center this way, and this way, and this way, then it makes sense. Okay, let's come back in with our micron. And there we have our 3 center lines. And then we got to remember that from this top line, go back to her step outs, we are going from right to left. From this one, we are going from left to bottom. And from this one, we're going from bottom to top. And notice that, you know, these lines are parallel here, parallel here, parallel here. This is parallel with the bottom. So we start to kind of get that rhythm with a little bit of practice. So this one's feeling a little bit neater than that first time around. And then at this point, I'm going to come up and I'm going to draw that triangle here, turning my tile as needed. And then I'm basically aura-ing this left side of the triangle and then that bottom side of the triangle. So I'm creating an inner triangle as if I'm drawing behind, right? As if I'm drawing behind. And then we're going to come over here. So if I imagine that I'm drawing behind these lines, so now all of a sudden I have this inner triangle and I have this gorgeous woven look. And so if we take away all of the lines, we can really start to see that more woven look of the pattern. And this is a fun one again to shade and add some dimension. And if I blacken these in, that would create one look. So we can really start to play with. Hi, Anne. Good morning. Thank you for passing through. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to blacken in the insides of these triangles. It'll help us to see a little bit better some of those inner patterns And then in one of her demos, she has some inner auras in the lines that also I think help to see that woven look a little bit. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to have some breaks in the lines to almost make it look as if the light is shining on some of those lines just to give it a little bit of that visual interest that we love. And I love aura lines because I think that they just dress up everything in ways that are sometimes unexpected. They give some spaciousness to a pattern that makes us stop and look. It's like there's definition and there's some breathing space. And so if you're finding this complicated like I did the first time through, and the second and the third and the fourth, this is probably the fifth time I've drawn this, then just remember to take your time. So I'm going to go ahead and shade a little bit where these come together. See if we can emphasize just a little bit where some of those pieces are crossing over each other. Where that one's sort of, maybe going underneath here. So this is a fun one to just, again, play with and see what kind of magic you can create. To create that sort of image of that interlocking triangle. And what's fun about this pattern is that this could also be drawn in a ribbon. We could draw a bunch of these. It could be drawn in like a hexagon where you had 6 of them in the round. You can have a lot of fun really playing with this pattern. So 2 definitely more complicated patterns, but the final pattern is one of my all-time favorite Zentangle patterns, and it's super, super simple, which is great because I think it will let us all catch our breath and go, oh, here's a moment of ease. And easy doesn't mean that it's any less beautiful. In fact, it is a lovely, lovely tangle. And it is from Zentangle headquarters. It is a classic pattern. This one, Marion. So it's just a tiny little Zentangle sells these and you get whole bunches of them when you're teaching. It's like a library pencil. Remember when you used to have to go to the library and fill out a library card to request a book or write down a number in the old card catalogs? It's just a number 2 pencil intentionally with no eraser. And any number 2 pencil will work. And then I just grabbed this mechanical pencil because it had an eraser. And then this is a tortillon, a smudge stick. Let me know if I answered your question. Oh, it was white. This one. So this is called a tortillon, also called a smudge stick. It is a classic tool for illustrators working in graphite or for artists who work with chalk pastels. And it's literally a smudge stick. You can get them anywhere. They come in often in little packages. I think I got this one on Amazon. There are a couple of bucks for a lot of them. And so that's what I'm using to spread the graphite. And they can sometimes called smudge sticks, not to be confused with, the sacred smudge sticks. but they're most commonly called a tortillon, which literally means twisted because all they are is little bits of twisted paper, but they're twisted nice and tightly. It's a tortillon. So the classic Zentangle tools are those three right there and nice paper. And so those are our classic tools. Awesome. All right, so our day 31 pattern, we made it through all 31 tangles of Inktober Tangles, is from Zentangle headquarters, and it is poke root. Any of you who have done anything with Zentangle will probably recognize this pattern. And it looks like a berry to me. It's a lovely fall pattern to mix with leaves. And actually, one of my, what are called my mac and cheese tangles, one that I draw all the time is poke leaf, and it's a variation on poke root, and they're drawn the same way. So the way that we draw poke root or poke leaf is with a really long, skinny triangle with a little upside down half circle there. Looks like a little frowny face. And then we're going to draw a little cherry on top of that. And that is one little poke root. And these are fun because you can really stack them, bunch them, practice elements of drawing behind to create a beautiful little cluster of berries. Why they call it poke root, I don't know, because they remind me of berries, not of roots. And this is one you could have a lot of fun adding to over and over again. And because I love orbs, it's really fun. I could come in and fill in those spaces between with just black ink or with some little orbs to create just a fun little cluster of berries here. And this is a really simple one to smudge. We're going to smudge in the center of our little cherry here, our little poke root, and maybe just around one edge a little bit to create a little bit of rounding. And then coming in with that tortillon, that smudge stick. And we have a nice little cluster of poke root. And we draw poke leaf the same way, but we draw a leaf on the end instead of our little root. So we have that long skinny triangle, that same little curve. And then I always draw them as if it's an upside down heart. There's a lot of different ways and shapes that we could draw. And again, we can, create those clusters. We can draw behind. I could even round that top edge a little bit so we get some different shapes, or maybe I want some curvier leaves. So we have poke root and poke leaf, which are variations of the same pattern. But we did it. We made it. I'm impressed with myself that I actually got through the entire challenge and am super excited to spend more time adding patterns to the edges of the poems. And all of a sudden my camera seems to be unfocused. And now I have this gorgeous book, and I have hundreds and hundreds of poems that I haven't even gotten to yet. I was looking for some more This was one of my favorite patterns this time. So as I flip through the book, I have this lovely dictionary of Zentangle patterns, but then I also have this entire anthology of gorgeous poems to enjoy. These were two favorites as well. This was fun because I discovered so many Mary Oliver poems that I wasn't familiar with before. So I encourage you to continue to enjoy Zentangle and poetry. And tomorrow, I will not be live. I have to go pick my hubby up at the airport. So tomorrow is Wednesday, November 1st, but on Thursday morning, November 2nd, I will be diving into art, journaling, and gratitude. Thanks, everyone, and have a beautiful rest of your day. I will see you guys all live on Thursday morning. If you liked what I shared, please click that like button, and I look forward to seeing you guys all soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day. I am Minette. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette.